Okay, so we have the Headless Horseman.
No. Drum roll.
Whoa. So is this George Washington's too?
It is. It's a three-piece suit that he acquired sometime in the mid-18th century. It's amazing that it held up so well.
He's a pretty fit guy.
No, he was 6'2". He was a tall man, but he wasn't a really large man.
So our mannequin's a little short.
I purchased this George Washington suit over 21 years ago, and it was one of my first major purchases for my collection of Americana. It's a major highlight of my collection. But if Rick really wants me to put a price on it, I'm going to put a price on it for him today.
I'm just like in awe.
It is amazing.
If I could go back and have a cup of coffee with just about anybody in history, it'd probably be this guy. He could have been elected president until the day he died, but he stepped down after 2 terms, and he set the standard for presidents to come. To me, he's one of the most amazing men in history. He really is.
Oh, yeah.
So where'd you get it?
It was passed down from family member to family member, and it ended up in an auction in New York City. I was able to purchase it there. A highlight of my collection until I purchased the Washington sword. So it dropped down to number 2.
Do we know the date on this thing?
I think it's from the 1750s or 60s.
Okay.
Back then, it was pink, and you could still see some of the pink in this area.
You know, Washington was always very aware of how he presented himself. Pink would have been a bright color and one that really would have set you off as, you know, fashion-conscious individual.
And it's all silk?
Or silk.
I'm impressed. So you think this is all legit and everything, right?
Yes, I think it is. On a piece like this, what it's dependent on is provenance. There are missing pieces, that sort of thing. But that's minimal.
For being over 200 years old.
Exactly. You just don't see a piece of Americana like this very often. This is just amazing.
Absolutely.
So you enticed me with a sword that's not for sale, and this thing right here, does it have a price on it?
Well, it's one of my highlights of my collection. But everything has a price.
Well, I'll let you guys work that out. Very good to see you, Rick. Good to see you. We'll see you back in Vegas.
Take care.
So how much?
I wouldn't sell for less than $3 million.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of suit.
I don't think I'd ever say this, but I'm actually considering this. I mean, it's George Washington's suit. I mean, it never occurred to me that one would be available. I'm gonna go think and contemplate about this for a little bit. Can we meet up later?
Absolutely.
All right, I'm intrigued. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks, Rick.
That's cool. So I'm back at the hotel. I'm seeing Brian. I'm ready to sit down and have a serious conversation with him. I'm back.
You're back. Good to see you.
He wants $3 million for George Washington's suit. I've been offered items in the millions of dollars before, but I've never really considered them until now. The suit.
Okay.
You asked for $3 million,
Right.
but what's the best you can do? 1.5?
No, I appreciate your offer, but it's really a major part of my collection.
How about $2 million?
Since we're friends, the best price, absolute best price would be $2.5 million.
Okay, and you're firm at that?
Absolutely firm with that.
I mean... Okay, well, I guess the suit's out then. I didn't get the suit, but you know what? It didn't fit me anyway. What can I help you with?
Well, I've got a World War II book that was authored and also autographed by Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Wow, really? He was in charge of the biggest military operation in the history of the world ever, which is pretty amazing to me. I'm assuming it's not a comedy?
So far, I've gotten through part of it, no comedy. I came to the pawn shop today to try and sell my Dwight D. Eisenhower book, autographed by Eisenhower. I purchased the book at an estate sale. I would like to sell the book because I've got my eye on a Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford autograph.
Crusade in Europe. I like the title. Did you know much about it?
It follows him through his campaign in Europe from start to finish, and
Okay.
it's his exploits of what happened during the war. Here's a note from President Roosevelt appointing Ike to command of Operation Overlord, storming the beaches at Normandy.
Okay. Eisenhower, I think, is my dad's favorite president because, as far as my dad is concerned, basically, if you were a lifer in the military, you're all right. And if you didn't spend your entire life in the military, you're not. During World War II, Eisenhower was basically in charge of all the fighting in Europe. He was the guy in charge of planning the Normandy invasion. Hearing about D-Day from him would be completely different than reading it from a textbook. So it's signed by him?
Yes.
To, I guess that's Pamela Byrd. Best wishes, Dwight D. Eisenhower.
It really becomes Eisenhower's rookie card because at the time he signed this, he wasn't president yet. He was president of Columbia University, so it's before he became president of the United States.
Yeah. All right, so how much were you looking to get out of it?
I'm looking for 1,000.
Maybe. Let me call up a friend. She's an expert in rare books. She'll probably know the signature, and if this is a first edition and all that fun stuff. So let me get her down here. If everything's legit, we'll talk money.
All right, thanks. I feel fairly confident about it. Certainly hope that there is a big payday at the end of this, that we can come to an agreement and I can sell the book.
Rebecca, how's it going?
Good. I hear you have an Eisenhower for me. The guys usually call me down here because they don't know a lot about books. Crusade in Europe, this is all about World War II, specifically the European front. Eisenhower was involved in this from pretty much the beginning. He was the person who contained the divas, and that includes people like Patton, who didn't want to listen to anyone, or General Montgomery, who was the same way on the British side. It's pretty common in a historical event like this, one of the major generals or participants will write a memoir about it, but they're not common signed. I have the same book in the signed limited edition.
Okay.
What we're gonna do is look at the two signatures. One thing that we have to worry about is that Eisenhower actually had an auto pen. So there is the possibility in this time period that he could actually have the auto pen signed for him.
I see.
The nice thing about this, though, is you have this full inscription here. And since you've got a uniformity of ink with the inscription and the signature, we know it's not auto pen.
Great.
But the other thing that you might worry about with Eisenhower is actually that it could be secretarial. So, from what I can tell here and here, it's real.
Sweet.
Oh, that's great. Awesome.
Okay, so is this like a first edition? This is a second edition?
It is a first edition. It's
How do you
a-
tell? How do you tell?
You know, it depends on the book. With this book, it's pretty simple. You're just looking at the copyright date here, and you don't have any extra mention of printings.
Okay.
Awesome. So this is first.
It is a first edition, and it is signed. These are all good things.
So what's it worth?
Well, one thing I can tell you, just looking at it, it does not have the dust jacket.
It does not.
This was originally issued with a dust jacket, so it's not considered complete.
Oh, all right.
If it had the dust jacket, $3,000.
Okay.
Without the jacket, this book is worth $1,500.
Half price because of that.
That's right. A book as a collectible needs to be complete as it was originally issued. That means if it had a dust jacket, it needs to retain the dust jacket. If it was an original binding, it should stay in that binding. You're losing a huge part of its value.
How much you want for it now?
Well, she said 1,500. I'm thinking around 1,000. That gives you a little room.
I'm thinking more like 800 bucks.
How about the difference, 900? Does have Eisenhower's signature. We know that.
I know. We're still talking about a lot of money for a book.
But it's an Eisenhower book.
$850.
No, I've got to stay with 9. It's really unique.
You know what? I'll go the 9. I'll go the 9.
All right, we got a deal.
All right.
Thanks.
I'll meet you right up front. This was a total no-brainer. A book written and signed by a 5-star general who later became president. I just hit the jackpot.
I have an original Lincoln Parlor card. That is the basis of the Lincoln penny.
That's pretty amazing, the ones that he signed. I've only heard stories of these existing. This is the Brady's one.
Matthew Brady. He did the image for the $5 bill and the cent, and this is the basis of the Lincoln penny. I'm at the pawn shop today to sell my Lincoln Parlor card. So I'm a collector of Lincoln memorabilia, and I saw this card at an estate sale about 15 years ago, and I don't think they knew what they were selling. If I sell the card, I'm going to reinvest in my Lincoln collection.
Parlor cards were sort of a new thing. They sort of came out in the 1860s. Back then, it was a really cool thing to have a photograph in your house because photographs were expensive, really new high-tech things. Eventually, it became really popular to get, like, you know, the president, maybe a famous writer or something like that. You get their parlor cards, and you would literally put them in your parlor in a glass case, and it showed you were sophisticated. It was a big deal. This guy Brady made some parlor cards, actually had Lincoln sign them. And so this is actually the image that is on the cent in your pocket. The Lincoln cent came out in 1909, and right around that time period, Lincoln had elevated to the status of greatest American the world has ever seen. That's when they started designing a memorial for him. Also around that time period, Teddy Roosevelt, he really hated the way our coins looked. Our cent was the Indian cent. He just told the Department of Bureau of Engraving, let's get something a little better. And that's when all of our coinage changed. And there for a while, we had Lincoln and then a bunch of beautiful women on our coins. Like I said, I'm still in shock that you brought this in here. I didn't know what existed in private hands. How much you want for it?
I know you've got to make some money on it. This is the only one left, so I think a fair price is $100,000.
That's a lot of sense. I know they're uber rare. Let me get someone in here who'll have a better idea what its value.
Right.
Okay? I'll be right back.
Okay.
I'm just in shock.
Wow, that's really an astounding piece. Photography was not an easy process. It's not like today where you can just run off photographs and any senator or president can sign them easily. Mid-19th century photographs are generally pretty uncommon. I'm not sure I know of any of his predecessor, James Buchanan. There were a couple engravings of John Quincy Adams that he signed. They're pretty rare. They're only a handful in existence. I mean, really, if you're collecting presidential signed photographs, this is the top of the pyramid.
I've never actually seen one before.
They are out there. They are rare, though, and they're often heavily forged, shall we say. So this Lincoln Parlor card could be special for two reasons. One, it was taken by Matthew Brady, who was the most famous American photographer of the time. And two, it was later used to create the image of Lincoln on the penny. So I brought in some examples of authentic Lincoln signatures here. So one thing I look for authenticity is the angle of the O. He usually makes it not as a perfect circle, but as an oval, and he usually slants it about 45 degrees upwards. So if you look here, there's a 45-degree angle. And then if we come over here, you can see it's not a perfect circle. It's sort of an oval, and you can sort of see the lower point and top point make that 45-degree angle. So, Rick, I do believe it is genuinely signed by our 16th president himself.
Okay. So the big question, what's it worth?
In a high-end retail gallery setting, you could probably put a price of $150,000.
It's worth even more than I thought it was.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Good luck with it.
Thank you.
If you're a collector of presidential items, having a signed photograph of Abraham Lincoln really is the ultimate. It's a great piece of Americana. It's the top of the collecting pyramid.
Okay, so, I mean, like, what's your best price on it?
I told you $100,000, but you could make money even if you gave me $120,000.
I'll make this really simple for you. I'll give you $100 grand. I won't go a penny more. That's what I'll go. 100 grand.
I think 110 is a fair price.
I am comfortable at $100,000, and that's it.
We got a deal.
Sweet. Go right over there. We'll do some paperwork, and I'll get you paid.
Great.
And then you can pay the IRS. We look similar, don't we? Yeah. I could be president.
This is a flag that was cut off of a World War I airplane by my grandfather The plane was bullet-ridden, and it crashed.
So let me get this right. The plane was on fire, and your grandfather ran up with a knife and cut the flag out so the American flag wouldn't burn.
That's right.
That's awesome.
I came to the pawn shop today to sell my grandfather's flag, which he cut from a World War I airplane. I'd like to sell it because it's been sitting around for 95 years, and I'd like it to go to somebody that really would like to do something. And, you know, it's always nice to make a little bit of extra cash as well.
So what can you tell me about it?
This article was from about 1940. He brought the flag to work, intending to have it framed. He was called out to duty, and when he came back, the flag was gone, and he assumed somebody stole it. Well, 10 years later, he helped move the lockers away, and there was the flag for 10 years.
So you have the flag in the article. You got anything else to back up your story?
I have these dog tags, and one of these dog tags actually says Lieutenant Quentin Roosevelt on the back and George Pine, my father's name, on the front.
That is really cool. Quentin Roosevelt was Teddy Roosevelt's youngest son. He was a great pilot, and when he was shot down, the Germans buried him with full military honors. To think that this flag was off one of the planes in his squadron is just an amazing part of history. I will have no problem selling it. So what were you looking to do with it?
I'd like to sell it.
Okay. Did you have a number in mind?
$7,500. I did have it appraised, and it came in at $10,000.
It is a one-of-a-kind item, but you can appraise it for anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I can offer you like $5,000.
Make it $6,500. What you have to think about here is, how would you replace this? How could anybody...
Well, you can't exactly
Yeah.
replace it, but there's other very expensive, very patriotic things from World War I. So $6,000 is more than fair.
$6,000. You have a deal.
You want to write her up, Corey?
All right, come with me.
I'm seriously excited to get this flag. It's a one-of-a-kind piece that's sure to generate collector interest. And stuff like this brings a lot of foot traffic into the shop, so I might not even sell it.
How's it going?
What do we have here?
I got a 1872 U.S. patent model for improving the dyeing of stripes on flags.
Okay.
DeWitt C. Farrington. He was the inventor. This is the original patent, 1872. Actually, in the back, you can see it. He brought it in 1870, and it wasn't approved till 1872.
Sounds like government efficiency.
I have an 1872 U.S. patent model for dyeing stripes on flags. I got the patent model at a small antique show in Illinois. If I sell the item today, I'll probably take my wife on a vacation and buy her some dance shoes.
It is cool, though. I mean, I really do dig it. Patent models are really neat. They were really expensive to make. You had to go find a craftsman. A guy had to make this from scratch. He had to cast out these pieces like this and make this model for the guy. I mean, the great thing about these old patent models is they actually worked. Because I imagine this thing was huge when it was set up for actual dyeing flags.
I love it because it revolutionized the flag making process. If you can see right here, those clamps would actually, compress the wool. And so the textile being clamped would not get dyed. It's actually oriented like this, so the flags would be sitting here. So you'd have these big strips the size of an American flag.
All right, that makes sense. Before this, you basically had to take red strips and white strips, and they basically sewed them together. I mean, this is really neat. So how much you want for it?
I'm asking $3,800.
I'll give you $2,000. It's a patent model. It's really, really cool. Not nearly as cool as some other things I've had for patent models.
I'll do $2,500.
I'll go $2,200. I mean, it's interesting. It's a super, super limited market. It's going to take me time to sell it. $2,200 is a fair price.
All right, yeah, I'll do
All right,
that.
sweet.
Yeah.
Deal. I'll meet you right over there, and we'll do some paperwork.
Okay. I'm psyched that I can make a deal today. I paid less than $1,000 for the item, so $2,200 is awesome.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Good. What do we got here?
Well, I have a pre-revolutionary document from 1774. It's the extracts from the votes and proceedings of the American Continental Congress.
Okay. This is like the pre-Declaration of Independence. Great Britain was really getting on our nerves. This is basically where they're complaining to Great Britain about just them being dicks.
I'm here to sell a pre-revolutionary document from 1774. I purchase estates and storage units at auction, and I liquidate the contents. This document happened to go in the back burner for about 10 years until I realized what I had in my possession. I'm looking to get $15,000 for this.
This is a pretty amazing thing you have here. At this point, 1774, we were second-class citizens living in these colonies across the ocean. We had no representation. They were just basically, you'll do what you're told. This was a condensed version of what they did when Congress was in session. There was a lot of resolutions and everything else we were sending to England saying, hey, please get off our backs. Just treat us equal. Let us do commerce and let's live our lives just like normal British citizens. And this right here is telling England, like, quit being unreasonable, which they didn't do. So that ended up leading to a war. So have you had anybody look at this?
No.
Do you know if this is a first edition?
I believe it is.
So how much you want for it?
I'm looking for $15,000.
I have no idea if that's a good price. It's very interesting. I know it's rare. It's very collectible. But there's a lot of questions I have about it. Things like this get really, really technical. The right condition, the right paper, the right printing, everything. So let me call somebody up to take a look at this, if you don't mind, okay?
Absolutely.
I'll be right back.
I'm totally fine with an expert coming in. I welcome it. I'm eager to know what the book is worth.
Hey,
Hi,
what's
Rick.
up?
Good to see you. How are you?
Doing great.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
This is the extracts.
Wow. So you know this is one of the most important documents from the American Revolution, right?
Yeah, it's like the early Declaration of Independence. Like,
The pre-declaration?
yeah, it's just like we're just telling Great Britain off.
Well, this is actually the point where we're still trying to come to some sort of compromise. You're the first Continental Congress, which meets in the fall of 1774. And that's when representatives from the colonies get together and they say, all right, we got to do something about all of these acts, essentially things that are like taxes or closing the port in Boston or quartering soldiers in our homes, that type of situation.
The intolerable acts.
Yes, the intolerable acts. A lot of the problems were happening in Massachusetts, in Boston in particular. And for a long time, other colonies were like, you know what, that's Boston's problem, that's not my problem. And so for a long time, there wasn't unity. And the thing that's so important about this is the first time you have the colonies coming together, united, to talk to Great Britain. So the United and United States starts here.
That's incredible.
So these are the most important points of what the Continental Congress was discussing. And it gets printed in Philadelphia, and then immediately they want it spread as much as possible to the colonies.
So what's the condition?
Something like this wasn't meant to last. It was meant to be printed quickly and spread really quickly and then like thrown away. So you look at this and you think, oh, it's kind of roughed up. I look at this and I say, that's beautiful. For this to survive hundreds of years in this condition without ever getting bound, that's really a big deal. And you have the original stitching. This is everything that a collector wants.
Okay, so he's asking $15,000 for it. Clue me in.
I have known of copies selling for around $12,000.
Okay.
But this is not complete. Do you see here, we're on page 48. We've got this sentence here at the end. But to unite with us in one social compact formed, the sentence cuts off. This is missing on the page. So once a book is no longer complete, that price sinks very rapidly. Honestly, I wouldn't expect a collector to pay more than about $4,000 for it.
Okay. You're the best.
Take care.
All right, so all said, what will we take for it?
How about $3,500?
No. I'll give you $2,500. Said I could probably get $4,000 for it.
How about $2,850?
All right, we have a deal.
All right.
I'll meet you right up front there, and we'll do some paperwork.
Sounds great.
There's nothing so cool as owning an original snapshot of history as it was being made, except for how much money I can make when I sell it. Not that I'm not gonna read this thing 10 times before I do sell it.
How you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing?
All right, what do you got?
Something unusual. Copy of the Declaration of Independence.
Hey, Corey.
What's up, bud?
This guy has the Declaration of Independence.
No, he doesn't.
Sure I do. Just not the one in the case in National Archives.
Okay, yeah.
First true facsimile copy of it.
This is one of the William Stone copies.
This is.
Believe it or not, about once or twice a year, I have somebody come in claiming to have the original.
I found the Declaration in a box of old documents that I had won at auction. I'm asking $25,000, and if we come to a deal today, I'm sure there's things to do, fix up the house, take a vacation, something like that.
This is interesting.
It was printed by Stone in 1833, and his printer's mark is right there, just below George Walton's signature. He was given the actual Declaration by John Quincy Adams.
These were kind of big back in the day. I mean, because basically, you know, if you lived in some rural town in North Carolina, you were probably never going to make it to Washington, D.C. to actually see the originals. So you could go into the post office and you could actually see a really, really good copy of it.
And this is the foundation of our country right here.
You know, people often forget that every single person that signed this thing was committing treason. Signing this piece of paper in 1776 was punishable by death. I mean, it had to be pretty scary. I mean,
What's amazing is if you look at the signatures, John Hancock wasn't afraid of being hung. A few of these other guys, you can tell from their signature, they're a bit scared.
It's pretty crazy it happened on July 4th.
oh, you never cease to amaze me, buddy. I know the original Declaration is so faded by now, it's almost impossible to read. So it's a really good thing that Stone made copies of it. The bad thing is that he really didn't make that many of them, probably less than 1,500. So it is really rare to see one. Obviously, you brought it in here to sell it. How much are you looking to get for it?
Looking for $25,000.
$25,000.
Yeah, it does look like it's in pretty rough shape. It's got some holes right there and maybe some water damage.
And just the way it's been folded for...
It's been folded for 183 years, which is actually what probably saved it. If it hadn't been, it's very likely it would have just fallen apart.
I'm just curious to know, how do we know this is from the early 1800s? Do you mind if I text a friend of mine to come down and take a look at it?
Absolutely.
He could give me a little bit more insight on what the copy of the original is worth. I'll be right back, man.
Sounds good. Corey's gonna call in an expert, and I'm very happy with that and totally confident that it's an absolute true William Stone original facsimile of the Declaration.
Nice.
I'm curious to know how old it is.
Okay, the original printing of this in the 1820s was done for John Quincy Adams. And then in the 1830s, early 1840s, Stone was asked to do prints for a series of books called the Annals of America.
Okay.
Do you mind if I pick it up just a little
Absolutely.
bit? Yeah, because the thing that you have to watch for on these is the original one was done on vellum, the second print on rice paper. And rice paper just means very lightweight paper.
Yeah.
It's also a rag paper, or what we would say an acid-free paper today. So if the paper is not correct, it's not that print. But you've got the correct engraving here of W.J. Stone, and the paper that it's on is correct. So this is, in fact, the 1830s, 1840s Stone printing.
So basically, it's an authentic replica.
Yes, it's a great find.
Oh, Mark, I appreciate you coming down.
Not a problem. Have fun. The Declaration of Independence is the document that created America. And this is really about as close as you're going to get to the original one.
You got a really cool piece here, man. So, I know you started off at 25. I don't know if you know, but having paper restored, it cost a few $1,000s. Comfortably for me to jump in this thing, I'd like to offer you $4 grand.
Well, no, I respect that. I mean, it's way less than I'd be willing to take. You know, I'd be willing to come down to about 22.
Yeah, that's, I mean, we're so far off there. I've seen copies in better shape sell for a lot less. I'd go to 6, and that'd be the most I could pay you for it.
I'd come down to maybe 18.
I'm gonna have to hold at 6, but if you change your mind, I'm always here.
Sure, I appreciate that.
All right, well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, Corey.
Take care.
The highest Corey's offering is $6,000. I know I can get substantially more at another auction or in a private sale, so I'm gonna have to walk.